I don't know if you tuned in last week to my little podcast debate with Tim Kilgore. It was a great time, and I was really glad that I had the opportunity to do all this homework uh, for the debate. Is the Bible missing books? And I had made mention of the fact that Daniel Wallace from Dallas Theological Seminary said that there was a discovery uh, very recently of a what is believed to be a first century fragment of the Gospel of Mark. Pretty wild. Let's see here. Now, I'm gonna take what he said. Was dated by one of the world's leading paleographers. He said he was certain, quote, that it was from the first century. If this is true, it would be the oldest fragment of the New Testament known to exist. Up until now, no one has discovered any first century manuscript of the New Testament. The oldest manuscript of the New Testament has been P52, a small fragment from John's Gospel, dated to the first half of the second century, discovered in 1934. So most interesting, and I guess they're going to have more information available next year in 2013. I hope it's a nice, chunky portion of the Gospel of Mark and not like a little shred of it the way P52 is. If it is, this will, I don't know, I think this will do a lot to shut up the Muslims and the Ermine bots and the fundy atheists who, want a first copy of the New Testament to consider it reliable, despite the abundance of textual manuscripts available of it. But that's not really my point here in this. Well, that's one of my points. If you guys didn't know, very exciting information. First century manuscript of the fragment of the Gospel of Mark has been unearthed and more information to come. But the real question I have, this is a first century portion of the Gospel of Mark. Now, we don't know what it is, how big a portion, what portion of Mark we're talking about. But to the JWs who watch my stuff, I got a question for you. Your organization is so big on, well, the divine name was in the original manuscripts, and it quotes Professor George Howard's theory of why it was so. Here's Mark chapter 1, 1:3. Listen, someone is crying out in the wilderness, prepare the way of Jehovah, you people, make his road straight. Now this says in the manuscripts, prepare the way of the Lord, Kurios. What are you going to do, Jehovah's Witnesses, if the fragment of Mark's Gospel contains Mark 1:3, and instead of saying Jehovah, it simply says Ton Kurios? Are you really going to insist? Are you really going to believe your leadership when it tells you that in the original manuscript, on the original autographs of the New Testament works, the divine name was in it the way it is in the New World Translation? Or, let's go to Mark chapter 12, where Jesus is talking to the Pharisees about whose son the Messiah is. Is it David's? And go zero in on it. How is it the scribes say Christ is David's son? By the Holy Spirit, David himself said, Jehovah said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put my enemies beneath your feet. Well, forgetting for a moment that Jesus is talking to people who are hostile to him, the Pharisees. He does something that no Jew did in his day, use the divine name, supposedly. And is there any kind of a flip-out reaction from these people hostile to him? No. They're just stunned. They don't know how to answer his question, but they don't say, whoa, you didn't just use the divine name, did you? Well, putting that aside, what's going to happen if Mark 12 is part of this fragment, and the divine name ain't in there, and it's a first century manuscript. Are you really going to be that sure that the divine name really is in the original, what the original copies were of the New Testament? I wouldn't be. Jehovah's Witnesses, I would urge you to come take a step into a much larger world. A world where, guess what, your organization, it doesn't get everything right, and it's simply feeding you us versus them propaganda. That's all this divine name stuff is. And here's my little uninspired prophecy. You're going to find out next year when this manuscript, information about it is released to the public, that is indeed the case.